Hey everyone, Reaper here again with another video. I'm going to be making two videos back to back. And there's, as you could tell from this video, it's a CGC video. My next video will be a CGC video. My next video is actually going to be what books I just sent out to CGC and what books I'm planning to send out to CGC by the end of the month. But it got me thinking about the subject again, and I know how much people love CGC conversations. But as you can tell by the title of this video, what books not to send to CGC. Because you hear a lot from people on YouTube, Instagram, wherever, talking about how, and this is something I brought up over and over again on my channel, sometimes in large portions of the video, sometimes in little drips and drabs. But, people saying that, oh, CGC is a scam, they're taking your money, all that sort of stuff. Well, the thing is, and I'll show a couple of mistakes that I made grading, and I'll just talk a little bit about it with you. Because I think sometimes people see those videos, they see my videos, they hear from other people, and they're wondering, gee, do I submit to CGC? Is this worth submitting to CGC? All those sort of things. And I'm hoping that although you may not get all the answers you want from this video, but maybe it gives you a little bit more insight or I could validate, some of my reasons to you why I grade this but won't grade that. And it might help you down the line. Okay, so I see sometimes the videos talk about you should never submit to CGC, you're losing money and all that stuff. In part, some of that is true because I've seen people grade some of the stupidest things. I'll be on Facebook and I'm, scanning through some things. I'm selling some stuff on Facebook. And then I see people complaining about they got this book graded and it came back like a 9.6 or something like that. A lot of modern books that even in 9.8, it just doesn't seem like it's worth the hassle of going through the grading fees and trying to make that money back and all these other things. It just seems too much of a hassle. So yeah, there are some books that I wouldn't submit. And it's not just modern books. Don't get me wrong. I'm not coming down on modern books. There are Silver Age books that I wouldn't send to CGC. You have to look into it. When you send a book to CGC, now this is what you should consider. When you send a book to CGC, you should consider how much you paid for that book, how much is it going to cost for the type of service you want for CGC. Do you want to have it pressed? Do you want to have it, is it a high value book? Is it a vintage book? The shipping, all those sort of things do add up, and that all adds to the cost that you put behind that book in general. And you have to ask, are you selling this book? What will it be worth if you think it's this grade? I mean, you have to factor in so many different things. And even some of those things, there's nuances to them. So you have to put a little bit of thought into what you want to sell. But anyway, I have some examples of books that, are just simply not worth sending. They're just simply not worth sending. Even if you got them for like $1, the chances of somebody actually buying these books and what you have to pay for shipping and what you had to pay to have them CGC'd and all that stuff, it's just absolutely not worth it. So I'll give you a couple of examples. And I think some of these are examples, not these exact examples, but these are some of the reasons why you get so many videos out there, people complaining about never submit to CGC, all that sort of stuff, or any grading company. But let's start out with this one right here. Brave and the Bold, and anniversary issue number 200. This is the first appearance of Katana, and this is an 8.5. I sent this book in. This is one of the first books when I got my CGC membership. Now, I've had other people, like my comic book dealer and some others, send books in for me to be graded for years. But then a couple of years ago, I just said, you know what? I should be doing this myself. Let me do it. And one of the first books I sent, along with a few others, was this one. So why would you send this one in? I was under the belief that this was going to come back an extremely high grade. And the idea was to get it back, see that high grade, and then get rid of it. Now, some may say, well, 8.5's nice. No, it's not nice. For what I paid for this book years ago, for the grading costs, and all that, what I would have to do to sell this, no one's going to buy this book. It would be a complete loss. And that was a mistake that I made when I sent this out. Now, I previously thought it would be much higher than that, where maybe it wouldn't have been such a bad idea. But the fact that it came below what I thought, really just an absolute total loss. This is probably something that I would sell in a bundle, a very decent bundle of books that I would sell for a bargain price. Yeah. Now, for someone who likes this, it's fine. But regardless, whether you like it or not, no one's going to spend, the amount of money that I would need to make back what I paid for this book, what I paid for the grading, the shipping, all that stuff. That is when, this is a prime example of when you send a book in and it's an absolute loss. It was just a waste of time. Well, yeah, even I have those mistakes too. Now, this one right here, I didn't send this book in. I'm going to give you another example of an absolute waste. Now, I'm not dissing the book. I'm not dissing anybody that likes the book. But it's not a book that you send to CGC. It's not a book that you send anywhere to get graded. Here we have The Mighty Thor 231 and 9.4. Not a bad grade. No one's going to pay any decent amount of money for this book to cover the grading fees, the shipping, and anything else. Now, this is not a book that I sent off to have graded. This was a book that I accidentally purchased. It's not really a funny story. This was a couple of years ago. I was bidding on Heritage, and it was the first time I was going to do the live bidding. For years before that, I would always put in my maximum bid before it would go to live bidding, and that would be the end of it. If I won, I won. If I didn't, I didn't. But there was a book that I was attempting to win. It might have been a Cryptoterror 18, because I was going crazy trying to find that book. But anyway, it might have been that. I don't know. So I said, well, I want to see if I could win this. I probably should pay attention to when that book goes live, and maybe I might have to bid up a little bit, because it's such a hard book to find. So when I joined, it was around this session, and I was just trying to figure out what was going on. I'm like, okay, this is, because, I had trouble, like, oh, this is live bidding, and I accidentally put bid when this thing came up. I didn't pay that much for it, but regardless, whatever I paid for it, I guess is too much. And I wound up winning this. I was like, oh, I guess I just bid on that, and no one else bid on it. I forget what I paid for it. It was like a negligible amount of money, but whatever it was, it was a waste. Okay, but again, you have to be a little more. So that's an accent. You have to be a little more intelligent. You got to strategize a little bit more when it comes to these questions. What books you want to send in. Now, like I said, I'm going to try to finish this video up in another few minutes, because I pretty much said everything I want to say, and I gave you a couple of examples. But those examples, maybe some other ones that are a little bit better than that, of course. Other people will say, these are the reasons why you don't submit. These are the reasons why you don't submit grades. See, you lost money on that. That's the end of it. No, it's not the end of the story. You can't compare the two examples, and there are many other examples out there I don't have, because I don't really make that many mistakes when it comes to, in my opinion, when it comes to sending books in. But you can't use those examples as reasons why not to submit something like this. It makes no sense. For what I paid for this, what I thought this was going to come back as, when it comes to the grading fees, I didn't have this pressed because it was already pressed when I got it. The shipping is negligible. It's what, $30? But, it still adds up when you're piling it all up on what, tier you're submitting this as. But again, like, from what I paid for this, after selling my undergrade my under copy that I bought back in 1996, which I barely paid anything for, when you factor in all that, it was incredibly worth it, especially since this came back a higher grade and a better page quality than I thought it would. Now, I didn't think that, but it just happened to work that way. Sometimes you win some and sometimes you lose some, right? And this is clearly a win. But you can't compare those two books that I just showed, or maybe even some of the other examples that people use on Facebook, on YouTube, to something like this. I got a couple more. Here's another one. This is a really cool, high, decent grade. When I say 7.5, I guess that's low-high grade. A copy of Vault of Horror number 29. For what I paid for this, what I actually had to put into this book after selling my undercopy and realizing what I paid for my undercopy and the grading fees, it's a win. It's an absolute win. So again, it's just another example. You can't compare books like this and many other books like this one to something like that and say, oh, well, see, it's a big waste. No, I'd rather have this in the slab Believe me, especially when one day I'm going to upgrade this to a 6.0, I'm not going to sit there back and forth arguing if I had this raw, well, I think it's a 5.0, and the other person saying, well, I think it's a 4.0. And, oh, there could be restoration on it. There's no restoration on it. Well, I think there is. Well, back and forth. Nuh-uh. I'm cutting that part out. It's totally worth it. Especially if you're into it, you really want to make sure your big books are in a nice display case like this with the grade. If you ever wanted to sell them down the line, you wanted to cash out, get out, or you wanted to upgrade, whatever. It is good, but you got to be a little smarter with what you decide to get graded. And that's just the way it is, you know? And sometimes I don't think people tell you that. So you got to sit back and think about it. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching the video here. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe you learned a little bit of something, maybe not too much, but just a little bit of something. And stay tuned for next week when I show you what books I sent off to CGC and what books I'm planning to send off to CGC. I kind of sent a couple of books off without realizing, oh, I should have made a video about that. But I'll tell you what they are, and I'll tell you what I think they're coming back as. So when they finally come back, when everything comes back from CGC, we'll make a video. That'll probably be sometime next year. All right, everybody, take care.